So we'll start with John Harbaugh, who was actually the only of these guys to have a press conference so far. That happened this morning, and introduced as the new head coach of the New York Giants. Video yesterday of him getting to the facility, walking around with his wife, getting to meet everybody. Harbaugh and the Giants reportedly had agreed to some form of a deal in the middle of last week. And then it took another 72 plus hours to iron out all the details. And the reports are that he was very specific about the terminology and the wording with owner John Mara, that he wanted to report directly to ownership. He wanted nothing to do with reporting to general manager Joe Schoen, who is still there.
Yeah, who then Joe Schoen spoke and was basically like, yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's on paper. I think it matters a lot, actually. Who reports to him?
It was awkward that Schoen is the guy leading him around the building and kind of like doing here's John Harbaugh, our new head coach, and we're best buddies. But you know that he was hell-bent on not having to really deal that much with you or answer to you.
Right.
This just feels, toxic's too strong, but like a bad setup.
We've done that here. We did that with Mike Shanahan espousing how great the relationship was going to be with Bruce Allen. And how, I guess, at the end of the day, I'm the guy that's in charge of it, but it's collaborative. It'll be in that case, it was a Redskins decision. This will be a Giants decision. It's disastrous. It's stupid. It's a bad structure.
Yeah, you either have to go coach-centric, where the head coach runs everything. I don't think that makes sense, Ron Rivera style, but if you get the right guy, it can. Certainly is the case in Kansas City, where the Chiefs have a front office led by a general manager, but he answers to Andy Reid largely. We've seen that with Belichick in New England. Or you go the other route, where you empower and have a GM that runs everything. That's what's happening here with Adam Peters. And then the coach answers to that person, Dan Quinn. The Giants are doing neither of those. They have this, two people at the top of the family tree, Harbaugh and Schoen, and the owner above them, and they both work with the owner. Good luck to them. I'm sure it'll work out. What do you make of the Harbaugh hiring, though, overall? Seems like, just based on the back and forth and the exchanges we've had about Harbaugh over the last few weeks, you're higher on what he means as a culture changer than I am, which is not to say I don't like him. I think he's a good coach. I think he is an above-average NFL head coach. But this is not a wave a wand over in Oregon, make him a serious contender guy. I think he benefited pretty immensely from Lamar the last few years. Very curious to see what this looks like. I'll bet he has quick success, but I'd bet against him being a 7-8 year, several-time playoff, Super Bowl champion in New York.
No, to me, he's a legitimizer. And what I would try to do, and they didn't, by the way, they were just so happy to have him, is what did Baltimore do that made it so they never lost? That they always win 12 or 13 games with Joe Flacco or Huntley coming in relief of Lamar Jackson, etc. They're always good. How do they do that? Small, strong, smart GM who knows what the hell they're doing, and he and the head coach have a great working relationship, and that guy gets more out of his players than most. They decided not to do that. They gave Harbaugh the keys to the kingdom, and he basically said, I'm not dealing with this boob Joe Schoen. I'll report directly to the owner. I think they've kind of self-sabotaged there, but I do think highly of John Harbaugh.
He has a long and illustrious resume that suggests he's one of the best in the NFL, for sure. And so I don't think you can go wrong hiring him. Legitimizer is a great word.
Yep.
You are credible, and he is going to elevate your floor. He's going to keep you from being bad. I certainly believe that is the case. All right, let's get to the Atlanta Falcons, who have hired Kevin Stefanski. This one's interesting. The Kevin Stefanski sweepstakes was pretty bountiful. He interviewed with a bunch of teams. This is one of those, I bet you this works out better than what you had before things. He was a multi-time coach of the year with awful ownership in Cleveland with the Haslams. He gets fired, deservedly so, possibly there, because they've been so bad the last couple of years. Didn't have a problem with the decision, but it doesn't mean he's not a good head coach. Same with Harbaugh, right? So now you get to go somewhere else and try to start over new. He goes to Atlanta. Currently, Michael Penix, coming back from a torn ACL. His number one mission is going to be to elevate and help Michael Penix get to being a star in this league. In the meantime, though, Kirk Cousins is their starter who needs to have a reworked contract. They're probably going to cut him and try to re-sign him. Stefanski and Cousins were together in Minnesota, had a good relationship with the Vikings, so I find that intriguing. Stefanski has already brought over Bill Callahan to coach the offensive line as well. And there's talk, that Jeff Ulbrich is likely to stay on.
Sounds like he's going to stay,
the defensive coordinator. Ulbrich's one of the best DCs in the league, a guy Washington wanted to talk to, the Cowboys wanted to talk to, neither's been allowed to. That's not a bad coaching staff.
No,
for
there's
Atlanta.
some good bones there. And the issue, of course, you already said is quarterback, and Stefanski's very familiar with going to a place or being in a place that doesn't have a very clear quarterback situation. It's usually very, very muddy there. But young player James Pierce for them, 10.5 sacks. You got some pieces. Jalen Walker went towards the top of the draft a couple of years ago, maybe this past year, with 5.5 sacks. He's an ascending player. They got nice pieces everywhere. That's, again, as I said, good bones. Quarterback is a mystery. I don't know how that's going to work. For them. They probably need to be in the position, to be honest with you, to maybe draft one after this coming season, because I don't know the timeline for Penix to be able to come back and have a meaningful year. Now you're on a water treading situation. If you can do that sort of salary cap maneuvering with Cousins that you mentioned, it's a murky quarterback situation. But everywhere else for Atlanta is actually a really good starter kit.
The Miami Dolphins have a new head coach. They have hired Jeff Hafley. This was the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. He was the head coach for a short time at Boston College in the ACC collegiately as well. Hafley didn't like the NIL portal game, got out of college coaching, hopped up to be a coordinator for Matt LaFleur, and a lot of people just like the cut of his jib. Think he is, a coach's coach and a leader of men. So he gets the call from Miami. I don't know if this is a progressive step. I guess you could tell me it's different, and maybe that's what they felt like they needed. Mike McDaniel's a savant, an offensive guru, but he's also everybody's buddy. He's not really a hard ass. He's not a guy that's going to come down on players. Maybe Hafley could be that. I was listening to Miami radio the hour after McDaniel got fired a few weeks ago in middays, and I just jumped on the Odyssey app. And they were talking about how, whoever's the next coach needs to be the opposite of him in terms of culture.
Always the way, right?
They wanted basically, and this is what they had with Brian Flores. They had it with Flores. They went the opposite with McDaniel. They kind of want to go back toward Flores. And maybe that's Hafley. I'm not sure. One name to keep in mind here that I've heard he could be bringing over as his OC is Sean Mannion. This is a David Blau-like trajectory. He is the assistant quarterbacks coach a couple years ago, and then the quarterbacks coach in Green Bay under LaFleur.
Who was playing 2 minutes ago.
He was. He was Blau. He was a backup quarterback in the NFL for years. Maybe he goes over with Hafley to be the OC there to build the offense in Miami.
This is always the way, right? When you're kind of a floundering organization, it's whatever is the latest thing, whatever the last thing was wrong. We need the exact opposite approach. Instead of really finding your true north, to borrow from Dan Quinn. But this just feels like a reaction. Now, Hafley may be great. I have no idea. I mean, to me, there's very little data on him other than, as you said, a couple pit stops on the way to being the head coach in Miami. But they now decided down there, we need disciplined taskmaster, Tom Coughlin sort of style guy, as opposed to quirky, mercurial, draw your plays on a napkin guy, Mike McDaniel. Who knows if it'll be the right fit, honestly, but to me it may be. I'm not sure what you can do with Buffalo still in the division, with a new head coach on the way there, and New England ascending probably a year early, where they're going to a Super Bowl this year, and they're not quite ready for primetime yet. Just tells you how good they're about to be. You could hire Newt Rockne, and it may not work out.
I also know that there are a lot of people who look at results previously for coaches and judge their hire based on them. Okay, so what I mean is Hafley was not overly successful at Boston College. His numbers in Green Bay weren't what you thought they should have been. Remember when they played Washington in week 2?
That was the best defense of the year.
They shoved it on Washington. They had shoved it on Detroit the week before that. They were the number 1 defense in the league through those 2 games and actually through a few weeks after that. But overall, you could make the case that they underachieved based on some of their talent this year, bringing over Micah Parsons. And so I think there is some of this pushback going, wait a second. We've heard Jeff Hafley's name all year as a head coaching candidate. Everyone's told us and over-talked about how he was going to be a really good coach. But where's the proof on the resume? You see that with Cliff Kingsbury a little bit, where people go, where did he ever win? What was the success? I don't know that that's the best metric. In fact, that's not how I view coaching candidates. But that is out there, and I will be curious about it, that this guy is viewed as this can't-miss candidate, but also where are the pelts on the wall, so to speak. You want a retread? I got a retread for you, Danny. Robert Salah got hired last night by the Tennessee Titans. Salah was with the Jets. It went very poorly. Then he went back to San Francisco, where he was the DC before he got the Jets job. He became the DC again. Had a awesome season. And really the highlight of the season was probably their playoff win over Philly, where he devised this great plan and shoved it on the Eagles with a bunch of guys missing. That was his Mona Lisa, but he was great all year long. Salah is really highly thought of still as a future successful NFL head coach. And the idea is that the Jet situation was just a debacle.
Yep.
His defenses were really good there. The team was actually ultra competitive. But remember, it was a Zach Wilson fiasco. It was that the beginning of the Rodgers? Was he there for?
I think they crossed over for one of them, right?
The first year when Rodgers tore the Achilles. It's like he had some bad luck at the quarterback position too. I can't imagine he single-handedly chose Zach Wilson. So now he's picking Tennessee. And if you're him, you better get it right this time. You don't get 3 chances. And he's putting a lot of eggs in the Cam Ward basket.
I'm a Salah fan just in general. I've loved him as a DC from afar.
Is it because he looks like Lord Xerxes from the movie The 300?
That hadn't been my biggest reason why, but it's on the list.
Like,
you take off the earrings,
really like him.
but just always seems like he's like that. He's the defensive coordinator that I like, where it's like every run stop, he's like losing his mind. The headset falls off because he's so excited. And
Another way to
for his
say
team.
that is his arrows will blot out the sun.
That's one way to put it. Tennessee, okay, I guess you had Mike Vrabel. You know what I mean? Like, you fired 7 people since then, and you land on Robert Salah, who I like. Just seems like a tough, reverse horse trade there, where you actually went to the flea market with a horse and ended up with a postage stamp. You're kind of losing a lot when it comes to it. But anyway, you do you, Tennessee. You're precious.
Those 4 teams have their guy. Harbaugh to the Giants, Stefanski to the Falcons, Hafley to the Dolphins, and Salah to the Titans. That means there are still 6 teams that don't have a head coach. So I'm going to throw them out there in the order I rank them as best to worst job.
Okay.
And then you tell me what you agree or disagree with. I think the best 2 jobs are the Bills and the Ravens. I think it's hard to argue this.
Agreed. What order do you have them, though?
I've got Buffalo 1, Baltimore 2. The reason these are the 2 best jobs are the quarterbacks. Josh Allen's won MVP awards. Lamar Jackson's won MVP awards. And both of them, in theory, should be at the peak of their powers still. That's number 1. The reason I would put the Bills over the Ravens, first division. I think that the AFC East, where the Dolphins have not shown anything and are starting over with a new coach, and where you really only have to worry right now about New England, right?
Yep.
It's just a easier division than you've got Burrow in Cincinnati. You've got Pittsburgh. I know they have to reload with a new head coach, but they're a winning team every single year. And Cleveland stinks, and I'll put them as a bottom feeder, but they've got a new head coach. You don't know how that goes. But I just think the North, over the last several years, way more competitive than the East. I also am more confident in Allen over the next 3 years than I am Lamar. Lamar's coming off of a bad year. He's coming off of a year where supposedly the next coach needs to be able to get through to him and motivate him, and there's all these questions in the building. He's also been injury-prone way more often than Josh Allen.
Yep.
He is also just, there have been more recently him struggling than Josh Allen. So for those reasons, I would choose the Bills over the Ravens.
This year has kind of unsettled me a little bit in my sort of feelings about that Ravens job. I'd actually put the Bills job ahead of it slightly, which I think might surprise some people.
So we agree there.
Yeah, whatever the noise was this year, and it could just be bogus. It could be from Harbaugh's camp or whoever trying to get out of there. I have no idea what's real, what's not. I don't follow it closely enough, but just a lot of the noise wasn't very positive. It's not used to what I'm seeing. Baltimore to me is the pinnacle of stability. Like that's the organization I would like to model other organizations after if I'm in the NFL, where I haven't always been blessed with the perfect, square-jawed Hall of Fame quarterback for 20 years like New England. I haven't, luck boxed into it like Green Bay has, where you go from Hall of Famer to Hall of Famer to now potential Pro Bowler and Jordan Love. They've kind of just been really stable and solid all the time, always smart, always a move ahead. That always feels good, and they give your coach a long runway. Something about this year and how rotten it was has kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. So I put it a peg below Buffalo, but still the second best job at worst.
Do you agree with my theory on the divisions, too? Like, the Jets are worse than the Browns.
It's harder to argue just given our recent sample this year, but in general, I agree with you. It's more typical that AFC North is more competitive than it was this year.
I also, Burrow doesn't stay down. I mean, they're always going to... That is not a fun team to play.
No.
A lot of times...
Neither's Cleveland, for that matter.
It's like, who's the quarterback we're playing this week? It's Burrow. All right, this is going to be tough, right? That is the Bengals. The Browns stink, but I think the Jets stink more.
I do too. So the Browns, it's like, you're going to beat them, but it's 16-13 and Myles Garrett has 4 sacks.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be a pain in the tuchus to beat them. All right, so we got Bills, Ravens, both of us in that order. I think that there's 4 other teams here, which are the Raiders, the Browns, the Cardinals, and the Steelers that need coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, we're going to disagree on this probably. I think the Steelers are next on the list.
I got them too.
Do you?
Yep.
Because you said you thought that was a pretty bad job.
So I do, but I think the rest are atrocious. I wouldn't take them unless I had no other choice jobs.
See, I thought about putting the Raiders ahead of them. Indoor at Allegiant Stadium. The problem with that job is the division.
Yeah.
Chargers and Broncos have made the playoffs 2 straight years. The Chiefs are the Chiefs with Mahomes and Reed. So that is a murderer's row division. But the indoor stadium, the fact that you play a lot of your games indoors will be more and more that way with the new stadiums being built. I think that's ideal for someone kind of designing an offense, building things out. And you have the number 1 pick. So if you're a believer in Fernando Mendoza, the Steelers don't have a quarterback or a path to get one.
No.
And I think I'm ranking everything based on quarterbacks. It's Allen, then it's Lamar. So if we're doing that, the Steelers, it's a good job because it's Pittsburgh, it's stability.
You'll be there for 30 years.
Yeah, it's ownership, all that. But you're in a tough division, and you don't have a quarterback. The Raiders, you're going to have your QB1.
I don't disagree with any of that. To me, my counter is Mark Davis is a boob, and this Tom Brady thing, I think, is going to be very Jordan managing the Wizards-esque. I see it working terribly.
He's 0 for 1 in a big way.
Yeah, and I think more of that to come. I think stay tuned for the next thing, where he can't figure out why they can't just do what he did. And it's, Ted Williams was a bad manager for the same reason, where it's like, yeah, just, bend your bat this way and anticipate the curveball and meet it there. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? You hit 400 in the bigs, you lunatic. I think the Raiders, I wouldn't touch it.
Bills, Ravens, Steelers. So then the last 3, Raiders, Browns, Cardinals. That's the order I'm ranking them in. Raiders, because they have the number 1 pick. Browns, I don't think Shador is the answer. And I don't see them having a clear path right now. You can't go get a quarterback at this moment, both where you pick and also because I honestly think people would just be climbing up your stadium to fight you if you tried to draft a quarterback this year because Shador is the man. You know what I mean? So you got to deal with some celebrity at that
whatever
position.
That is, yeah.
You got to play that out and see if he can get better and where that goes. And then the Cardinals would be the last team. Maybe the Cardinals shouldn't be dead last. What do they have exactly going for them? I think they're going to have to trade Kyler. That's a bad situation. It's a bad contract. I couldn't think of a good reason for Arizona. They're in a terrible division. You got to deal with the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers. That's the worst for me.
Yeah, a couple nice pieces on offense. I mean, this great find of this guy Michael Wilson and Trey McBride's maybe the best receiving tight end in the sport. But that's not enough to make you enticed for the job. But I think it's still slightly more stable and more reasonable than the other spots. To me, Cleveland and the Raiders, until you get some sort of magical Kurt Signetti-like figure to really turn it around, they are doomsday for everybody.
What if it's actually Kurt Signetti?
Honestly.
Shouldn't teams be calling him?
Yes.
Maybe he says no. Maybe he says, I can't go. I don't want to make the leap. I don't know. Would he be interested in? Why wouldn't you? You just cannot convince me. Some of these guys love college football, and maybe he's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
You want to recruit your recruits? You want to re-recruit every year? You want to play this portal game? You just did the thing that you'll never be able to surpass. No matter what you do, no matter how many championships you win, you'll never do that again.
Yeah.
Why not make the leap to the NFL and see if you could do your thing there? That would be pretty cool.
Because you can go back to college again.
By the way,
you'll be welcome.
He's a Yinzer. Why not go coach the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Whoa.
Why not?
Whoa. How about that?
I don't even know if he's answering that call, but I would be making it.
I would call.
I would also be calling Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame, which, by the way, Notre Dame Clary. Aren't you guys upset at ESPN? Aren't ESPN the bad guys, the big, bad, mean ESPN? Marcus Freeman couldn't help himself, but
just right there on the
hanging out for a couple hours on the set last night.
Right up there on the dais.
I mean, yeah, I was a little baffled by it. I was confused, but I mean, hey, Marcus Freeman, he's the people's coach, and I think that next year you won't be seeing him on the podium there because you'll be seeing him on the field. So we'll see.
We still think we would have beat Miami, or we should have got in over Miami?
Oh, well, I mean, we were a top 3 team in the nation. That's what yesterday's game confirmed.
A top 3.
I love the math.
We had different takeaways from yesterday's game. By the way, the people's coach. I just thought the hypocrisy was amazing. Notre Dame going in on ESPN, pulling their team out of all bowl games and saying, we're not going to take part, ESPN. Wait, you have a spot for me on the desk for a few hours to get my name and my program out there?
Get my suit on 1 second.
Let me just go shine an apple and hand it to Pat McAfee and kiss his ass for 3 hours. It's fun to see Marcus Freeman on television.
That was tough. Again, I think he's great. I also think that was insane.
I love Marcus Freeman.
Everyone forgot, I guess.
Bills should call him. Ravens should call him. Mm-hmm. Steelers should call him. Raiders should call him. We've already got one coach who kind of failed up in Stefanski. Bad run with the Browns at the end, gets the Falcons job. I think the Cliff Kingsbury possibilities here are interesting. I mean, what if he got the Ravens gig? Or if he got to interview with the Bills and Josh Allen? Can you imagine? And it seems to me like Brian Daboll's a candidate with Buffalo. He stunk in New York. Yeah. It was a rough go. They blow him out. It's been awful for a couple of years in New York. What if he gets the Bills job to go back with his boy Josh Allen? Can you imagine?
Yeah, can you? Talk about. There's your filling up
That
right
would
there.
be hilarious. But it's very
Yeah,
possible.
welcome back to the nest. Because all we know of you, listen, whatever you did over there, because the Giants to me, I think, look worse today than they did a few weeks ago. Looks a little bit more dysfunctional. Because they're like, you know what, Joe Shane, you keep doing it, buddy. Your key card's going to work. We want more of that. It looks a little bit less like Daboll's fault as time goes. So maybe they're going, all we saw of you was this renaissance of Josh Allen. You're very welcome here.
I have no problem firing Sean McDermott. I really don't. In fact, he wouldn't have been my coach like 2 years ago if I was Brandon Beane in Buffalo. I would also be making a GM change if I was the Bills, though, while I'm doing this, because I'm doing it at the same time. That all said, you got to find a way to make a good hire, though. You got to do better. When you're firing your coach, like sliding over Joe Brady would be odd to me. It would feel a little bit like blowing out Kingsbury to promote Blau. You got to have a plan. I don't know what their plan looks like in Buffalo. I do know this. You cannot be a defensive-minded head coach and have a terrible defense and waste an MVP caliber quarterback's prime. Who would do something like that? Grant and Danny on the Fan, the latest on the Commanders' ongoing defensive coordinator search.